Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. I guess you became a plumber because you realized you were too smart to be an electrician.
Yeah.
Kind of that way?
Yeah. It was a new challenge, I'll say that. And I was getting a little bored with electrical. Having done it for, since I was 17, 18 years old, starting to get into the trades. And then now looking at it being that long, I'm 40 years old now. And I think when I made the switch to plumbing, it was about 3-4 years ago. I was just wanting a new challenge and figured I've done a lot of other things in the trades, and this could be something else I could just put on my belt.
Like, it sounds better that you got smarter.
Yeah.
Just, throw that out there. I tell electricians all the time, if you're any smarter, you could be a plumber. So how'd you get in the trades to begin with?
So growing up, my dad, somebody I always looked up to. He's a welder, was a welder for the Navy for a really long time, but he had me always working on the house with him, working on cars with him. And I was really good in school, got straight A's, all that kind of stuff, went to a junior college, graduated from that junior college, and then just realized that halfway through that journey that I really didn't want to do school or be behind a desk or do any of that kind of stuff. I liked the outdoors, liked working with my hands, and decided I'm just going to pursue work with my hands. So I actually started work when I was younger at a handyman company. That was my parents' next door neighbor, and did painting, drywall, remodels, stuff like that. I know we all hate to hear handyman, but that's how I started, and this is in California, so didn't do it here in Texas. Did painting, drywall, tile, all the odds and ends that you could do in handyman work, and then we started to do can lights one day, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I kind of like electrical. For whatever reason, I just gravitated towards it. Worked for some small companies that did residential service work and light commercial, found that, what was working for a good company is and what working for a bad company is. I worked for a bunch of bad ones at first. Then got in with a company out in California called Biosources, and we built pharmaceutical companies from, tilt-up buildings, and then came in and did all the new tenant upgrades. And then so I would put in lighting, put in all the electrical for the building, then worked in industrial a little bit, and then got married, and my wife wanted to move out to Texas where her family was. Since I didn't know anybody out here, it was kind of tough. Interviewed with Milestone. I had another interview lined up, and that one canceled as soon as my plane landed. And so Milestone was my only option, and got really lucky that was my option. I've been there with them for 15 years now. So
good deal. And you say handyman have a bad name, and it's not that they do. Any work that requires a license and a permit should be done by a licensed professional.
Yep.
And I love handyman. I wish I could find one around here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have one out here all the time doing stuff, but they wouldn't be doing plumbing, electrical, or HVAC.
Right.
Because here in Texas, that's what the law says.
Right.
And it's not just for the law, because I've been known to break the law before, when I was younger. The whole thing is, if a handyman installs a water heater and it ruptures or breaks, chances are insurance is going to say, hey, wasn't installed by a licensed professional, so you're on your own there.
Yep.
And that's not a good position to be in. And I know the company you're at now has a complete handyman service, which I think is phenomenal.
Right.
Such a great idea. When you picked electrical, or when you decided you really liked it, what was it? And I love the idea of going to work for a handyman company.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is you get introduced to a lot of different things.
Yeah, you get to know what you like and don't like.
Yeah, real quick.
Yep.
But what was it about electrical that made you think, man, I really like this?
You do painting and you do drywall. The saying, you sit there and watch paint dry, or this is like watching paint dry.
Uh-huh.
That's how I felt with painting and drywall and tile and all that kind of stuff. Tile was probably better, but electrical just seemed to me that it required some level of problem solving. And we did some diagnosing on some circuits one time, and I was like, man, this is kind of different. This is like using your stuff that I was good in school. I was good with math. I was using with that, and I was like, I could do this. This is working with my hands and applicating problem-solving skills. Mm-hmm. So that's why I gravitated towards it.
I think having an analytical mindset is great for anybody in any residential service industry because you're walking into a house, there's a problem.
Yep.
Solve the problem, fix the problem, move on from the problem. Construction's a little bit different. It's and I always ask people getting into the trades when people come up to me and say, I want to get into the trades. I start off with, do you like to build things or do you like to fix things?
Yep.
Because I think by the time somebody's 18 to 40, that they know.
Yeah.
Either, man, I love building stuff, or, you know what, I hate building stuff, but man, I love tearing stuff apart and putting it back together.
Right.
Okay, I like that. And then I get into, do you like electricity? Do you like HVAC? Do you like plumbing, roofing? I mean, is anything there that interests you? And I like the fact that you were doing a little bit of all of it. And you're like, man, I really like electricity here.
Yeah, and I think it could have gone plumbing. It could have gone HVAC in any direction. We just never messed too much with plumbing. Maybe we put a faucet in or something like that, but nothing that was, it was install or installation. You know, I was putting something together that didn't have a problem to begin with. I wasn't troubleshooting anything, and I liked the fact of troubleshooting. Had I known that plumbing was a troubleshooting trade back then, I could have chose that, or even HVAC. Just happened to be that electrical was there, which is my brain goes to. I like to fix things, but not only just fix them, but understand why it started or stopped working in the first place, and how do I fix it? How do I actually make it better than it was before? That it's going to last a really long time. Those types of things, or even find innovative ways to make that better for somebody. You know, maybe it's not the way that I was trained, but maybe there's a better way to do it. Always looking for that extra.
So take just a second and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name's Scott. I work at Milestone, and I'm the director of director of operations for our plumbing department. Basically, that's a fancy word of just being the head manager in that department. I work with some really good guys over there. I got a great team. I'm a master electrician, and I have a plumbing apprentice license. And I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to go into our plumbing department by our owners, Gus and Mark. They trusted me with that after running the electrical department for a while. And now I have a great team. We're doing really good things in plumbing and continuing to grow.
So what kind of a step is it going from being electrical, one of the top electrical guys, to being one of the top plumbing guys?
It's a big bridge to gap there, or big gap to bridge, I guess you'd say. I knew it was going to be tough. There's always this battle between electricians and plumbers. And to be honest, I've always felt like I never had that issue with plumbers per se, but definitely plumbers to the electricians. And maybe I'm the only electrician that felt that way. But when I came over, I knew it was going to be a big hurdle. But it was a challenge I wanted. Being in the electrical department for as long as I was, and doing electrical for since I was about 18 years old.
This video is sponsored by Leak Pro. Go check out leak-pro.com.
I wanted a new challenge, and it sounded fun to me. And I knew some of the guys, and I knew having a guy like David Butler, who's on our team and our responsible master plumber, had gained his trust. So I knew that if I could gain his trust, I could gain the other guy's trust. It's just, how do I do it? And the only way you can do that is get your hands dirty with them. And so I went out on jobs, dug some trenches for a couple of guys, got them to start realizing that I was a trades guy just like they were. It didn't matter what trade we were in. We all go out to houses, we get dirty, we get sweaty, we get the job done, we take care of people, and then we BS in the truck, and we're all the same people.
But as plumbers, when you go out to the job, you've got to clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, electricians don't do that. We know that.
Well, those little wire shavings get everywhere.
I know they do. Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I was on the Dr. Phil show, which they just built this big new studio over in, I guess, almost Fort Worth and Roanoke area. And I walk in the green room that they have me in, back in the corner where there's an electrical outlet on the wall, there's 3 little strips of plastic off the wire and a little piece of copper wire. And I'm like, yeah, that's an electrician for you.
Yeah.
It happens. So you become an electrician, and you moved all the way from apprentice to the very top.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to do that? Why do you want to be that good personally? What makes you want to be the best? It
comes from a competition standpoint for me. Like in my life, I I look at things like whether it's doing my job or the career I chose, whatever the case may be, or even things outside of work. If I go to the gym, I look at somebody next to me that if they can do it, I can do it. And I can probably do it better if I put my mind to it. I just always kind of had that mindset. And then I've always just wanted to continue to grow. I don't like to stay stagnant in certain things. I'm okay with it for a little while, but I'll get bored of it real quick. And so I'm always looking for the next best thing. And it doesn't have to be something new. It just could add to what I'm doing. So growing up as an apprentice, and I know there's a lot of people that stay apprentice for a really, really long time, never get their license. To me, if I chose something as a career, why would I not want to go to the very top? Mm-hmm. It's never stop chasing your dream of becoming all the way to the top. I just didn't have that in me to stop at journeyman or when I got here in Texas, there's this thing called wireman's license for electricians, which means you can run residential. But in California, I never heard of that. I was a journeyman, moved out here. My license didn't reciprocate, so I had to start as an apprentice again. Got my wireman's, got my journeyman's, and then got my master's license. If there was something above a master's license, I'd go for that too.
Oh, no, I completely get it. I'm the same way. I've got every endorsement in the state of Texas. You can get your apprentice, then your tradesman, then your journeyman, then your master's. At journeyman and master level, you can also get your med gas, your water supply protection specialist, your residential fire protection system, and then your RMP, your responsible master plumber. And I mean, I've got all of them but my RMP right now because I'm not running a business anymore.
Right.
But were you like this in junior high and high school?
No, it was more of when I got into junior high and high school. I was more focused on school and grades and all that.
I know you said you made straight A's.
I did.
You don't have to do that in a trade. You know that.
Yeah, you don't have to. That was my parents' fault. They put they incentivized me. Said if I got straight A's, I get $100 for every report card that came back with straight A's. So I was like, oh, that's my first way of making money and that wasn't hard to do. You just got to put your mind to it. I guess that kind of maybe sparked it in me is, hey, that's not that hard to do. You can do it. Because before they incentivized me, I was not doing so well in school. And then they gave me incentivization to do it. And it was either do well or not do well and get yelled at, or do well and get rewarded. And so I was like, well, I'll just do well. And then maybe that just translated into my life of if you do well, you'll get rewarded.
Man, I wish I'd have been that smart when I was young. I just kept getting by, which is sad. But, I didn't. In school, I just didn't worry about it. It's like, I'm here for girls and football. That was it. And I did what I had to do to pass. I didn't plan on going to college. I wish I'd been smarter and got a scholarship and got to play football and things like that. But I was just like, you know what? I'm just here. I'm going to get out and go to work. It is what it is. I quit school in the middle of my junior year, became a plumber, or got into plumbing. Did it the last half of my junior year, and then the summer afterwards, I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I went back and graduated with my class. And then after I got out, tried a couple of different things, but got back into plumbing and just, I love it. Have you ever got out of electrical and plumbing and tried other things, or ever tried other things while you were still doing electrical or plumbing?
Not really. I did go back to, I went back to college after I had got my 2-year degree and went for a building inspection. I thought maybe I wanted to be an inspector, but I did a course on that, and they teach you all the mechanical codes, building codes, electrical codes, which I already knew, all the code books you're reading in that. And then I was like, no, I don't want to be a jack of all trades on this kind of thing and an inspector. I'd rather just master the one that I'm in. Yeah, and so I made the decision to just stay in electrical and just go as far as I could in that.
And I love that. I wanted to become the best I could be at the one I'm in. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard these people that talk about read 52 books a year, read a new book every week?
Right.
I don't believe in that. I'm like, man, that is way too much crap to put in your head. Mm-hmm. But my thing is pick 5 books. Pick Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon, The Dip, which is this thick. It'd take you about an hour to read it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
Michael Gerber, E-Myth, something like that. Pick 5 books and say, I'm going to read each one of these books 10 times this year. Mm-hmm. If you can not memorize, because that's not what it's going to be, but if you can learn to effectively do what is in, those would be my 5 books. Yeah. Your 5 books may be completely different. I thought about this whenever you said, look, I wanted to be the best at what I was in.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. I wanted to be the best plumber. Can I get every endorsement? Can I get every license? That way I can speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done commercial, residential, industrial, service, new construction, non-union, union, non-union again. I've done it all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that I'm able to do what I do these days is, look, I've got experience with all of it. I can talk about any of it. As plumbing, I can learn about anything. Med gas, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Fire protection systems, I've done it all. But my thought is the first time I heard somebody talk about reading 50, 52 books a year, I thought there's no freaking way. A month later, I'm going to be like, wait, what was in that first book?
Right.
But my thought is if I picked 5 books, read this one, then read this one, then read this one, and then this one, then this one, then read this one again, and you do it, and I don't read real fast, so it wouldn't be a book a week, and I love audiobooks, so it would be more of like, if I can read this book every 2 weeks and do that, the dip, I can read it in a day.
Mm-hmm.
But, and you and I talked about the philosophy behind the dip.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not trying to be the best, why not?
Yeah.
And when did you take that on as a tradesman?
2 to 3 years into it as an apprentice. I was working for Biosources was the company, and there was a foreman I worked for, and I've been really lucky in my apprenticeship and in my career to work for really good teachers. And I say that meaning you can be in the trades for a really long time and learn bad habits from a lot of people.
Isn't that the truth?
I learned really good habits from the beginning, from really good guys that I could see when I went to other places that they didn't do it to the level that people had held me to at other places. And so I've been lucky enough in my career to start with really good people that were teaching me. And then when I got to see people doing it sub to that standard, it made me go, no, I can be better than this. I mean, there's a reason why they did it, took time to do it right. So I'm going to be the best I can at this because I don't want to ever be like the people that I've worked around that don't do it to that level. And so getting my license and all that was about, like I said, 2 to 3 years of being in the trade. I started to realize there's people with bad habits and there's people with good habits, and that people with good habits who I want to model myself after. So
you've got about 50 plumbers working with you right now?
Yep.
If it wasn't for you teaching them, how many of them would still be continuously learning, trying to grow?
Maybe 10 of them. Maybe, yeah. And just for full disclosure, the things that I do for them would be helping their coaches and all them manage them on the plumbing side. Teaching them the trade, definitely all David Butler.
No. Look,
okay, yeah.
I love David Butler. He's good.
And all the other guys that we have working as leaders in our group.
No, David Butler David's like me. David learned from a lot of different places, areas, people, things like that. Luckily for me, I'm like you. When I got into the union, of course, I'm a rat.
Mm-hmm.
They've got lots of names for it. But I'm a rat. I'm uneducated. I don't know anything. You were never trained the right way. So when I got in, that's when I started wanting to become the very best. I had always wanted to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And worked at it. But, I mean, literally from 1983, I guess, when I got my license, 83, 84, somewhere around in there, 83, because I started in 1980, till 1997 when I got in the union, I didn't learn. You're in residential, service or new construction, a little bit of commercial. But you show up, you work, you do your job. I'm a plumber. Let me go plumb.
Yep.
From the day I got my license, which, like I said, 83, 84, till 97, I didn't learn. I worked for companies that didn't teach. Luckily for me, 2 of the very first plumbers that I worked for were amazing.
Yeah.
You do it right. You do it right every time you do it. You do it perfect every time you do it. You want to be the one in the dish working, not somebody else. Because if they're doing it, you can't guarantee it's done right. And just a million different things. When I got into the union, there were classes you could go take. Your journeyman continuing education stuff. And I don't just mean your plumbing continuing ed, but you could go down to the union hall and take the med gas course and become a med gas plumber. Okay. You could go take construction management through the UA. You could do a lot of different things. And once I started learning, I became a sponge.
Yep.
And then it's like, what can I learn next? You talked about going to work for Gus. Gus, if there's anything you think I need to learn, bring it to me.
Yep.
To me, learning, knowledge, education, the whole thought of it, if we can change our mindset, we can change the person that we are.
Yep.
And I think it's Jim Rohn that talks about, look, if you teach somebody everything that it takes to become this wonderful person, say you built a multi-million-dollar business, which we've seen happen, and you lose it, you still got that mindset. You can do it again. Did you make mistakes or did something happen? Absolutely. But the person that you became to get here is not the same person that was down here.
You're right.
And that, to me, is the biggest thing that I've learned is any one of us can learn anything new. And I used to call it learn your way up, because I don't care if you live in an area you don't like, if you're married to somebody you don't like, you hate the city you're in, you hate the job you're in, you hate the school you're in, whatever it is, learn your way up. You can get up and out of any situation out there. If you're in that bottom 20%, you can learn to get to that middle 60%.
Right.
If you're in that middle 60%, you can learn to get in that top 20%. And I like the way you put it. There's certain habits. There's things we do right, which are good habits. There's things we do wrong, which are the bad habits. And if we get used to doing those bad habits every day, we're never going to improve. And it's the things that we tell ourselves in our head that help us decide to get there or not get there.
And people you surround yourself with.
It's huge. I remember I had a lady walk in one day. I was in a networking event, and she says she used to tell her kids, show me the 5 people you hang out with, and I'll show you your future. And there is so much truth to that.
Yeah, there really is.
If you're hanging around with thieves and drug dealers, and I don't remember who it was I heard talk about, but they're like, pretty soon you start to think, hey, that's okay. You may not agree with it in the beginning. You're like, ooh, no, I could never do that. But if those are the kind of people you're hanging out with every day, and those are the stories you're hearing, and that's the stuff you're hearing, eventually you're like, oh, it's okay. You know what? That's fine. You know, he does that. It's okay. It's not that bad. It's not hurting anybody. And it's like, really? That's the kind of people you want to hang out with? Because that's where your mindset gets to. And my thing is, I want to hang out with Mark Cuban. I want to hang out with Jerry Jones. Well, maybe when he's doing things right for the Cowboys. But I want to hang out with people. Gus, you know, I love talking. I remember the first time I talked to Gus, he said, come over, bring your price book. And I brought my price book and walked in, sat down, and he literally opens my book and he closes it. He said, you need to raise your prices. I'm like, you just looked at it. How do I know? He said, because this is my market. I know my market. And I'm like, man. And then, of course, I go back into my office. We need to raise our prices. Like, oh my God, we could never do that. We're already expensive. Yeah, but we're not expensive enough. Not for the value we bring, so we're losing money. And there's a lot behind that. So let's go back now to moving up from apprentice to the very top, director of operations. What kind of things do you have to learn?
There's a lot. You're, well, I guess I'll go back to when I decided that I even wanted to step into, I remember going back to when I talked about not wanting to be behind a desk, knowing that going into the office was going to be that. Behind a desk. And I liked working with my hands. There wasn't anybody pushing me to do that. There wasn't anybody asking me to go do that. In fact, when I presented it to our GM, which is his name's Joe, he was like, you'd be interested in doing something like that? I said, yeah. He said, well, throw your name in the hat. So I threw my name in the hat. I feel like I got really lucky to be chosen to be an assistant manager at that time over the electrical department. But there was something inside of me that was like, this is a new challenge. And kind of one of those things, I've been running service calls for Milestone for about 4 years. And after 4 years of running service calls, I was like, this is mundane to me, going to a customer's house, knocking on the door, doing all that kind of stuff. I want a new challenge. So that was a new challenge for me, since there was no other place to go. Maybe I could have learned a new trade, but
let me ask you something real quick. In 4 years when you were out running the calls, did you think you were the best technician they had?
I thought that I was one of the best electricians based on the way that I did work. Depends on how you measure a technician. You measure a technician off his sales.
I'm just talking about your mental mindset. What was your thought?
My mental mindset was I didn't want any callbacks. I wanted to take care of people really well, and I felt like I did that the best.
Cool. No, and that's why. Go ahead, because to me, mindset is what this career is all about. If you want to move up, you've got to develop the right mindset.
It was one of those things too, where if you leave, like, let's say you're out on vacation and you're a technician, if you don't have like 2 or 3 guys that if you're out and one of your customers that you've been to that always requests you, If you can't tell them one or two guys that you would trust on working on your own home, that's where you should be identifying. If you don't have those type of people, then you're not surrounding yourself with the right people. So when I would leave for work, there was other guys I would figure are just as good workers as me. But if I'm not going to be there, then this guy needs to be there.
You bet.
So you have to be thinking of yourself like that. Like, I do such good work that I would want the customer to receive the same, or my mother to receive it, my grandmother to receive it. And if I'm not available, then this guy's the one who needs to go. When you say the best, I'm not trying to, like, I don't want to toot my own horn on that.
No,
So,
you've got to have that mindset.
Yeah. But yeah, so going into the office was a little bit different for me. New challenges, I've never managed anybody before. I'd not in my entire career had people that worked underneath me, and that was probably very evident to anybody that might be listening that was underneath me when I first started. So there was a lot of things to learn there. And then getting more, used to and comfortable with the job, you start to learn how people work and what actually watching everybody else and being responsible for everybody else is like, and then how you treat people, how people want to be treated, all that kind of stuff was a whole new challenge for me. And then I wanted to learn, okay, well, I know I'm not very good at that. I'm definitely an apprentice right now, being an assistant service manager. Even when I was a service manager or going up to the lead service manager, I would consider that my apprenticeship. And when I got the opportunity to become a director, I knew that was Gus and them giving me my journeyman card. And then who knows to go from there where that master is for me. But that's how I want to continue to grow in this new path of my career. But it definitely, you go through those things. You have to fail in order to get better, and you have to learn from those mistakes. Not continue to make the same failures over and over again, but fail, learn from it. You had great intentions. You didn't mean to fail, but let's go ahead and move forward. When you failed, what did you do wrong? How can you fix it? How can you make sure it never happens again? And it's the same thing as a technician. You make a mistake, you didn't know better, now you do, and you learn from it.
It's one thing when I had my company, I used to tell people, look, I don't mind if we make a mistake. I don't mind if you make a mistake as a technician. I love the fact that you're trying new things, you're trying something different, but don't be afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. But then let's bring it into the office, let's discuss it, let's talk about it. Maybe I can learn from your failure, and I don't have to repeat it too, so all five of us don't mess up 5 times.
Right.
And that's such a big deal. And I think that morning huddles, communicating like that, and whether it's every morning, once a week, whatever it is, getting together and discussing what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what do we need to work on, what can we improve, or what are we doing amazing? Mm-hmm. And I think stuff like that's huge.
Yeah.
It's not easy for a lot of people to go from being in the field to being over the guys in the field. It's a completely different thing. And the hard thing is, especially if you're a good technician, you were generating revenue.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of revenue if you're a top technician.
Right.
And now you're not. Now you're over the guys generating revenue. And there's a lot of people that don't know how to teach, help, educate, support, whatever words you want to use there. How did you overcome all that?
I would say just a couple things there to unpack. There's one, going from peer to boss, right? Or supervisor.
You bet.
And if anybody's in that transition right now, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to lose friends.
You bet.
You're going to lose them. And the good ones, the ones that are your true friends, will stay next to you, and they'll understand that that's just the job that you have now, and you're watching everything. But when you go from being out there in the field and you know everybody's ticks and what they do and what they don't do and who's this, who's that, when you come into the office and you're watching everything, now you're responsible for who's not doing what they were, and you know who they were. And now you got to expose them a little bit. And
you've worked next to them, you know why they're not making it.
Exactly, yeah. You've talked to them on the phone.
They hate hearing that.
Yep. You've talked to them on the phone, in the truck, when they were having a bad day, and listened to all their gripes about this and that.
You bet.
So when you come into the office and now you got to, I guess, correct those issues, you've gone to the dark side. You're in the office now. You don't know what it's like in the field anymore. You're having all that kind of stuff. So that's tough. And then teaching them, I guess the hardest part about teaching anybody that you're over is how to have the correct mindset and the why behind what we do. If someone can understand that and believe it, then they're good to go. But getting them to get behind your why and why we're doing these things and actually believe in it, that's the hard part about teaching everybody.
A lot of apprentices will ask questions, and the journeyman don't want to tell them why. Just do it. Okay, I just need it done. Just get it done.
Yep.
And me, I never wanted to be like that. I want to be like, man, if you ask me why, I'm going to give you a more thorough answer than you want, because I want you to understand the why. Number one, how do we get more people in the trades? But how do we get them in and let them know, look, it's okay to ask why. The journeyman, the superintendent, the foreman, whoever, it's okay to ask why, because if you understand why, it makes it easier to understand why we do what we do.
Yeah. It has to be where people feel comfortable doing it, so they have to see that journeyman, foreman, whoever are comfortable in giving the why. If we're going to continue down the road of I'm too busy to teach, then nobody's going to want to learn.
You bet.
So you have to be patient. You've got to let the guy get the ball every once in a while. And I'm the worst about it when I was on job sites, because I wanted it done right. I didn't want to have to come back on a warranty for what my apprentice did.
If I've told you 10 times how to do it, now I'm letting you do it, I can't guarantee it was done right, because I didn't do it.
Right. And so I was a ball hog on jobs. Being an electrician, I would do the panel, and I would have an apprentice there to help me label when I was done, basically, and clean up. But I wouldn't let him touch very much. There was a few apprentices that I did, but they were very well trained already, that I could trust that they were doing the work. So don't be like I was, is how we would be better suited.
Don't do it the way I did it.
Don't do it the way I did it. We would be better suited if we had guys that would take the time to, like, hey, go ahead. I know it's going to take us longer on this job, but I want you to actually learn this. So I'm going to put you in there, and I'm going to be right next to you, and I'm going to teach you the why behind what we're doing here. And when I watch you do something wrong, I'm going to stop you, and I'm going to say, hey, we're going to redo it, and this is why we're going to redo it, and this is going to do it right. That's what we need out there. We don't need ball hogs like myself, and we don't need people yelling and screaming.
Yeah. And they've got a saying like that. It's called, do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm. Because I did it. I was the same way. But once I got in the union, and I think that's where I really learned that I wanted to grow. Mm-hmm. Because when you walk into any company, any union or whatever, and this video is sponsored by Leak Pro. Go check out leak-pro.com. Stupid, uneducated, lazy, open shop. You're all these different things. It's like, all I can do is outperform you. And I made it my goal every day. If me and you are working on the floor together, I'm going to outperform you every day. I may not be able to do it all myself. You've got an apprentice with you that's really good. So I've got to improve my apprentice. I've got to make my apprentice better. I've got to teach him how to do things that I would normally do. And maybe it's, hey, hold the dumb end of the chalk line. Let me mop this line. Now measure it out. Now you start drilling while I'm getting this together, while I'm doing this. And I think I got really good at that. And I think that's what helped me learn to be a good teacher. Yep. Because when I got put on these jobs, and I mean, look, I'm against some good union plumbers. And I say against, we're on the same team. Yeah. But we're on the same floor, so guess what? Yeah. I've got to outperform you every day. Right. And that's the mindset I went in with. And it'd have been really fun with you, because you're like, dude, we're going to knock this whole building out today, because you want to be the best, I want to be the best. This is going to be good. And it was. There was always that competitive edge. I always wanted to be the best plumber on the job, just to show y'all, look, I'm open shop. I get it. Yeah. But the union doesn't hold all the knowledge in the world. Right. Y'all are non-union. You got some great electricians, great plumbers, great HVAC techs, all that. I think the education is out there for all of us if we want to learn and grow. I think the union has harnessed a way to teach it and bring them in and educate them and do things like that. But then again, a lot of these instructors are there for the paycheck, not for the, I want to give back to the trades. Right. And that makes it tough. Well, and I think that a lot of, and us included at Milestone, we have a great teacher with David Butler, and he has a lab, and he teaches all of our plumbers really great. And in electrical, we have guys that do the same thing. But a lot of our training comes from in the field. Well, they're riding with a guy whose livelihood depends on getting the job done at a certain time, and he's supposed to take time and help the apprentice. It's probably not going to happen on the job. So having labs, having facilities to go teach these people how to do the job and why they're doing it and all that is very important, because if you're relying on the job training, they're going to get what apprentices have been getting for years, is hold the flashlight right. Stand over here and watch it. Exactly. And I love that, because I've had this conversation with Frank Denton, the director or the chairman for the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. I've had this conversation with Brian Francis, the executive director of TDLR. I've had this conversation with Lisa Hill, the executive director of the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. And I'll ask you, because you're in a really good position right now. Does it take 4,000 hours for everybody to get their journeyman license, or should it?
I think so. This is actually something that
I'm sorry, I said 4,000. Does it take 8,000 hours? 4 years is what I meant.
I'm going to go quote Gus on this. Don't handicap people by their own growth. So or by the way that they can grow on their own. So let's say like an apprenticeship, you've got year 1 you make $18 an hour, year 2 you make 19, then 20, then 21. Why would you do that to somebody if at 6 months into it he knows as much as a 4-year guy? Why would you or a journeyman? Why would you handicap his growth or his pay based on years of experience versus his actual knowledge? So I don't think it does for everybody. It can take for some. It could take 2 years for some people. But I also think that to give kind of credit to like everybody on the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners.
Oh, they're doing a fantastic job.
They're doing a great job. I do think it's important that you do have parameters around years in it, because even as a master electrician for as long as I've been doing electrical, I can still learn new things. I don't know everything.
I've been in plumbing 44 years. I still learn new things. Yep. Okay? So I'm not saying they're going to know everything in a year. I pretty much basically got my journeyman license after a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Remember walking into the office one day and the master plumber slides the form across the desk and says, sign that. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him like, this is my application for my journeyman exam. He said, yeah. I said, I don't have enough hours in yet. He said, yeah, you do. I've already filled it out. You're good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, you're serious? Well, where I was at that time, I was doing journeyman work.
Yeah.
I was roughing in buildings. I was laying out rough outs. I was doing the underground. I knew what I was doing.
Right.
Go back to you. At 1.5 years or 2 years in, as an electrician, you got your wireman's license. Mm-hmm. Could you have passed your journeyman exam then?
Yeah.
I think that we make it too hard, too long for everyone.
Yeah.
My thought is, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to hire a kid off the street and teach him how to take the test. That doesn't do me any good.
Yeah.
He knows how to pass a test.
I was He's
still going to go out and screw up a house.
Yep.
But my thought is, and look, I've had this conversation with Lisa. I've had it with Frank Denton. I think that we've got to look at how do we change things in Texas. And look, I need to call Brian Francis. I need to call Frank Denton and say, look, how do we all get together and say, look, is there a way? When you start talking to, and do you do the interview process? Are you part of the interview process for y'all?
For most of the guys, I can be, yeah.
When you get people in, does it deter them when they're like, wait, it's going to take 4 years to get my license, 4 more years to get my master's and all that? So I've heard that they're like, I don't want to, it's too long.
So I have mixed emotions about that, actually, because we started up Milestone MU. So and that's where David takes green apprentices, completely green. Like they haven't had any experience. Maybe we actually have a fun interview process where we have like different tools laid out, and they, one of them, that's put the right bit in the screw gun to put a screw in or a bolt or anything like that. And we've had people go over there and take a lag bolt with a hex head on top and use a hammer to nail it in. You can just be like, this guy's never picked up tools in his life, right? But we're looking for guys that kind of know the tools, but they've never worked in plumbing. And then taking them and putting them through 2 years to get their tradesman's license so that they can run service calls in residential setting. Well, I've had guys that have quit jobs, careers of being teachers, being managers at bars or restaurants or hotels, quitting those jobs to become a tradesperson, knowing that it's going to take 2 years to get that, and then stay the entire 2 years and become technicians for us. They were willing to make that sacrifice, knowing that a trade, whether it's plumbing or electrical, was worth the 2-year investment. So, and then 4 years to get journeyman, which would allow you to work on the commercial side of things. But in our business right now, being just residential, the 2 years isn't too long for them. I think 2 years is probably the right amount of time. And you say 4 years, that becomes a really long commitment, especially if you're somebody listening right now that's got a family that you have to feed, and you're thinking, man, I'm going to have to make apprentice wages. That's a huge sacrifice. And you have a career already, but you're not happy in it, and you know it's not sustainable. Or when things like COVID happen, and it's not essential like plumbing and electrical and all that is. This is, you know, or maybe a computer can take over your job in the future, whatever the case may be.
AI.
Or an AI, yeah. And you want to get into the trades. 4 years is a really long commitment. 2 years is much more attainable for people that want to come from what they're doing now and learn a trade and actually make a career out of it.
What do you start your apprentices out at?
I think 18.
18.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to start mine 15 to 20. You know, you can come in and impress me. You're going to get $20 an hour. You come in and try to drive a lag bolt in with a hammer. 15 may be a stretch. Not really, but I mean, a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know, and there's nothing bad about that. But I think that there's some people out there, and you may be the one, or David, that after 6 months, it's like, you know what, they could probably go pass their exam. They understand the plumbing system, and here's the difference. And you hit it. You hit the nail on the head a while ago. And I had this conversation with Don Buckingham, who was on the Sunset Advisory Board. And we're dinner talking back when we were fighting for our plumbing license a few years back. And I went to all the meetings down there, and I walked up and spoke with her afterwards because of something she said. And I believe she's an eye surgeon. And she says, Roger, can't a guy just go to work for somebody for a couple of years and know how to do plumbing? I said, probably. So, but what if you go to work for the wrong guy and all you learn is the wrong way to do it?
Yeah.
And she's like, My thought is, and Milestone to me is like the union or a company that's involved with PHCC or something like that. You said a while ago, some apprentices stand there and hold a flashlight for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, just hold the light where I can see. Hand me my channel locks. Hand me my crescent wrench. No, that's the screwdriver. Hand me my crescent wrench. But, I mean, that's the way a lot of them are trained. Just stand there and watch me.
Yep.
And what y'all are doing, what the union does, what PHCC does, there's courses they can go take where they're in doing things. And I think that is phenomenal.
It's one of those things where I don't know if this is even possible, but like, you know, you have your master's license, your RMP, maybe there could be a certification for certain designated plumbing trainers out there for companies to do. This is something they give Lisa and them an idea that they're certified by them to be instructors, and then verify if these people are ready prior to the 4-year mark.
And see, my thought is to take it even further. I think every master plumber, if you're willing to sign a piece of paper saying Scott's ready to take the plumbing exam, well, if Scott fails, that's a ding on me. Hey, Scott wasn't ready, and you said he was, and we wasted our time and money.
Yeah.
And I think that you say, okay, you know what, guys, you get 2 dings or 3 dings, and you don't get to sign paperwork anymore.
That's actually a good way to do it. Yeah.
And because then it's like, dude, are you sure you're ready for this test? And let's talk about it. And because I get a ding on me, I'm coming looking for you saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But that makes me verify. That makes me say, okay, show me.
Yeah.
Here's 200 questions. Answer them. You got an hour. Go. Well, they're going to give me longer than that. I've only given you an hour. Go.
You should know it.
You bet. I want you to know it that well. And the way I study for an exam, I can. I think I passed the written on my med gas. I'm going to say between 15 and 30 minutes. It was just, I mean, literally, I read it, I knew it. I read it, I knew it. I read it, I knew it. I read it, I knew it.
Yep.
It was that quick. And it wasn't, I read it and, okay, gee, let me think about this. God, was it this? Was it this? It's like, that's not how I study. I study where I eat, sleep, and breathe it for months before I go down. I remember when I went and turned in my exam, because they hand them all out, and they're like, okay, when y'all finish, come up to the counter and wait for somebody to get it from you. So I go up and I stand there, I'm watching the instructor trainees or what do they call them now? Anyway, I watch them walk back and forth behind the glass. One of them sees me, walks up, can I help you? I said, yeah, I need to turn this in. And he looks down at it. He said, there's more to it than that first page. I said, I know that. So he opens it up and he looks through it and sees that I did, or I guess he looked at the answer card and sees that I did answer everything. He says, oh, he said, you didn't study, did you? I just kind of looked at him funny, like, well, why would you even think that?
Mm-hmm.
He goes back and, an hour later, whatever, they call 10 of us and we come back there and they're like, okay, John Francis, 76, congratulations. Tony Bennett, congratulations, 80. Roger Wakefield, and looks up and gets that look like, because it was the same one who came up to the front and looks at me and looks back down and looks up. He's like 97.5 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And it's like, dang, I missed one. And it's just like, it's crazy because if you're ready, you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how long the state says it should take.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with Brian Francis, the executive director of TDLR. And I looked up, I said, Brian, look at the building we're in. It's a small little cafe type restaurant. And I just left John Aucoin in California. And I said, Brian, look at this room. I said, if you're working for me and I can teach you how to hang the lights, how to put in the wall switches, how to put in the receptacles, how to pull wire from here to the panel, how to mark it, how to do this, how to do this. I said, after we do that for a couple of months, say 6 months, say we did 2 or 3 buildings, don't you think that you'd know enough that you could probably do a lot of it yourself? He said, yeah. I said, don't you think I could teach you enough to make sure you understand it thoroughly enough that you could go past the exam? And then just the look on his face, he said, probably. I said, so don't you think that I could take you in a house, it's even smaller, less to do, and teach you how to do all this to where you could pass an exam in a year? And he's like, yeah. I said, that's what we need to do. He said, the old licensed people are never going to let that happen. Yeah. Because they had to spend 3 years, 4 years to do it. Yep. I'm like, man, I don't care. The world's changed. We didn't have YouTube. Yep. We didn't have the study guides that you can order and study every day. We had to go down the library, rent a book. Yep. Or sit there and read it. And I'm like, John, the world's changed. We got to change with it. Yeah, it's just or Brian, not John.
Just like we talked about earlier, just because I had to suffer through foremans and stuff yelling at me doesn't mean that the new crop has to suffer.
Absolutely. It's a completely different world.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. We can't just be like, well, back in my day, this is how we had to do it. So you have to suffer through
this ain't back in your day no more.
Right.
Yeah. So running, and I moved up to director of operations over construction for a large contractor. You moved up over electrical, then switched over into plumbing. What do you do at that level to make sure people are happy?
Ooh, that's a big one. I feel like on most days we get it right, but
well, you do. Most days people don't quit and leave.
But it has to be a continual thought that you're trying to make people happy. I would say the best way to make sure that you're doing that is communication. One of the things that I try to do and have my teams do is I have a breakfast with 4 to 6 guys sometimes on a weekly basis. I haven't been that great about it this last month, but typically every week I'll go out to breakfast with whether it's a couple guys from our install team or a couple guys from our service team or our sales team, and just ask them the ugly. Tell me what's bothering you out there. And then let them feel like it's a safe environment to give that feedback. And then we try to go back and make changes if they are changes. Or maybe if they have things that can't be changed, kind of address the why behind why we can't do that, why we do the things the way we do it. But having that open line of communication is key. And you kind of have to have that all the way to the top. It's not even, sometimes it's not that people don't feel comfortable talking to like a director. It's they're comfortable talking to me, but they may not bring something up because they don't think it's a decision that maybe even I can make. This is a company decision that Gus has to make. So Gus leaves that open line of communication all the way up through him. So anytime that you're feeling anything out in the field, like this sucks, I don't think this is right, this doesn't make sense, you can email that and it goes directly to Gus. And then it gets forwarded to some of us, sometimes depending on if it's, confidential stuff that he doesn't want to forward to us.
You bet.
But if it's something that he goes, man, Scott can fix this immediately, it goes right to me and we fix it. So having that open line of communication, no matter what level of leadership that you're in, is key to keeping everybody happy.
It's funny. I remember walking into the office of a vice president one day, just a few weeks before we had a conversation. He said, Roger, look, you're one of 5 superintendents that I've got that I would trust to run a $20 million job or bigger. He said, and you've ran bigger and you've done good on them. So, but you're one of 5 people. And, we were talking money. We were talking a bunch of different things. So it was a great opportunity. And then I came in a few weeks later. I said, hey, man, look, we got a problem. And I sat down and started talking to him. He said, Roger, look. He said, when you see a problem, you want to fix it. He said, we've got 6 vice presidents now. We've got 3 or 4 senior vice presidents now. We've got, 2 or 3 owners. We've got, everything's got to go through a process. He said, and it doesn't happen right now. He says, unfortunately, sometimes it can take 3 to 6 months to make changes like this.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you've got to understand that. And I said, you've got to understand that when I've got problems on my job that affect something, I fix it now.
Mm-hmm.
Why wait 6 months where when we lose money, somebody gets hurt, somebody dies, anything like that happens? And, we had the conversation. He said, look, safety always overrules everything.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. But even on the saving money, he says, look, we can't just make immediate changes. And I'm like, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the head guy out in the field and this is my job and something's not right, why can't I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good conversation, but it's neat that y'all have something set up where anybody in the field or anybody with that email address can email Gus.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the guy that says, there's a problem out in the field right now and I can fix it right now. And we're all technicians. So when you do get feedback from people that they have an issue, they're expecting immediate fixes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there and you're getting people telling you things and you've been sitting on it for a really long time and you've never got back 36 months,
326,
you've lost trust with your team.
Oh, yeah.
And so immediate action is good. It doesn't have to be same day, but they have to physically see you working on it. You have to check back in with them, let them know that this is something that we are still working on. It doesn't, like I said, the fix doesn't have to be immediate, but they have to at least see the ball rolling on it immediate. So that you've addressed it, you've read the email, first of all, then you've gotten back with them, gotten a little bit more information so you can start the process of fixing it and then check back in with them weekly, if not more frequently than that, to fix the issue for them.
I like that. So tell me again, if somebody wanted to go to work at Milestone, plumbing, electrical, whatever, how do they do that? How can they get in touch with you if they've got questions, anything at all like that?
You can visit our website, and then
what's the website?
Milestone.com, milestonehomeservices.com.
Call Milestone.com.
Call Milestone.com is all those things. Milestone, just Google it. You can you can catch us on there. Our phone numbers are on the truck. I don't have the phone number memorized. I'm terrible about that. It's in my phone. So, we are easy to get.
Give them Gus's cell phone number.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I have that one memorized.
Yeah, there you go.
Google us online. You can get a hold of us that way. We have a recruiting department. A guy named Chad will reach out to you. He's our trades recruiter, and good dude. He'll talk to you and let you know about all the different field positions that we have or other positions within the company. It doesn't have to be, if you're listening and you're a CEP or I guess what we call the hub, working the hub, taking phone calls. That's something you do for another company you're interested. We're more than happy to take anybody. If we want to attract good talent to our company and we sit down, we interview with you, we feel like you're a great fit, we'll bring you on.
Cool. Tell me about the worst day you've ever had.
At work?
Or of course. At work.
What was the word? I don't know. That's really hard to answer because I don't have, I guess the worst day, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really think about having the worst day ever.
Okay. What's the biggest mistake you've ever seen at work?
We caught a house on fire. That was a bad day.
That could be a bad day.
That was a bad day.
Plumber or electrician?
Plumber that doesn't work here anymore. Just didn't use the proper equipment that we give to them to solder and got too close to some wood and caught it on fire. Caught a side of the house on fire. And we just had one happen yesterday. So the one prior to that happened probably 4+ years ago, and then yesterday one happened. So, in the same scenario, and we're very fortunate that the customers are really, really understanding of the situation because, I mean, I can imagine how I would feel if that happened to my house.
Oh, they're getting a nice remodel now.
Oh, yeah.
There's always a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the best day you've ever had at work. The coolest thing that's ever happened.
Coolest thing that's ever happened. There was, it wasn't at work. It was something that I didn't know was going on. But we used to have these, company parties at the end of every year. They were getting really big. We don't have them anymore because people get crazy. So, but back then when we had them, they had this Manager of the Year award, and they'd never given anything out like that before. And I was not expecting it. And my name got called, and I got a pair of boots that have Milestone emblem on them for it, and they got recognized in front of the whole company and my spouse and everybody else. And I found out that it was voted on by my peers and the guys in the field, and I'd never ever expected anything like that. In fact, most days I feel like I do a terrible job, so I didn't like. So it's like one of those things where I always wanted to be doing better, and I'm really my own worst critic. That was really special to me to kind of get. I went up to Gus afterwards. I was like, "Hey, is this something you guys decided on, or is this something that you and Mark decided on?" Like, he goes, "No, we went around and asked, and this is what they said." And I was like, "Man, that's really cool.
That is cool. Neat."
Yeah, but I was not expecting it whatsoever.
No, and our best days and worst days, normally we don't expect whatever happens. What's the best thing you've ever heard about a plumber or electrician? What's the best thing you've ever heard about one of your employees, a job they did or something like that?
We have a lot of examples of that. I've got, I get most excited. I mean, there's a lot of them to list, so I'll just kind of give you like a summary of it. I get most excited when I hear about guys being unselfish. Like, they went over to help another guy out on a job to finish up and aren't expecting a pay request for it. Or a homeowner had a really big problem and they're going, you know what, I'm just going to do this job for free. They don't have the money to do it. They're like this, they have this whole thing going on. I'm just going to take care of it. And they're not expecting anything out of it. I get most excited when I hear stuff like that, because then that means I have good people working for me, the right people working with me.
What's the one bad thing that you've heard about an employee that you didn't expect, but you're like, this is something I have to address and make sure it doesn't happen again?
It happened pretty recently. We had a guy that was taking advantage of customers, and one of the top guys in the plumbing trade had the top numbers, all that kind of stuff. And you're looking at that going, man, this guy's doing awesome. How's he doing it? And you don't want to make the guy feel awkward, like you're microscoping him and all that kind of stuff. So we do have QC and all that kind of stuff. And I had heard some things from apprentices that would go on jobs and stuff and say, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. And so you start to get like a little wise to it. But it ended up happening that he ended up taking advantage of a customer, and it was something that was unnecessary that another company came out and verified. That customer was cool enough to let us come back and verify for ourselves that was the case. And so one of our technicians went back, verified that, yeah, that was unnecessary. The repairs that and it was to the sum of $20,000+ that the customer could have spent from somebody just being greedy. And that's probably, like, when you say that, the worst day. When I hear stuff like that, that just like makes my heart drop, because how can somebody do that to someone?
I had some guys working with me that had sold almost $100,000 sewer replacement. And they're coming in, they're all excited. It's just two of them, and they're a team, a manager and a top plumber. And they come in, they're all excited, and you can hear them, and they're stoked. And man, at the time at my company, that was a lot. I mean, that's like a month worth of work. Then you hear them talking about, well, she's going to go get the money out of her retirement fund, and she's going to do this, and she's going to do this, and she's going to do this. It's like, man, how can y'all be happy about that? It breaks my heart. I get sick. I want to throw up. And I remember I had another plumber call me one day, and he, man, you can hear the tears in his voice. And he's like, Roger, I got somebody here that's got a problem, and they can't afford it, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to tell them. It's like, number one, you just tell them. I said, did you create that problem? He said, no. I said, I know that. I'm just asking. You've just got to be honest and tell them, like, this is the problem. Here's our recommendations on how to fix it. I said, okay, you know what? We'll find a way to fix it. We'll find a way to work with them. If they're like, look, we understand we have to do this. How can we do this? We'll find a way to help them. So stuff like that's always a big deal. So I appreciate you sharing those. So if you could go back to the day after you graduated high school, you walk out, I guess even after college, and you walk out to go into your first job, If you could show up on that front porch when little Scotty comes walking outside, based on everything you know now, what would you tell him?
Well, there's a lot. I would tell him, you're better than you think you are. Don't beat yourself up. And never stop wanting to learn. And I would tell him that I would tell him to go down the same path I've gone down, and I would exclude a lot of the things I did between 16 and 25 years old, maybe. So
I get that. Some of those too.
But mainly, don't beat yourself up. You're better than you think you are. I have 2 daughters, and my oldest is 19, and she's a lot like me. She's her own worst critic also. So if she's listening and with my wife, then I'll tell her, don't beat yourself up, and you're a lot better than you think you are.
Great advice. Scott, this has been good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.